Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard law professor, is an unabashed liberal who voted for Hillary Clinton, but his tendency to defend President Trump during the Mueller investigation dramatically changed the way the media treated him. And joining us now from New York to talk about Mueller and the media is Alan Dershowitz, who wrote the introduction for the Mueller report, the final report of the special counsel into Donald Trump, Russia, and collusion, which hit #1 on Amazon over the weekend. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
So, throughout this investigation, when you frequently did defend the president, your integrity was intact. Critics wrote you off as a kind of a Trump shill. You even said that you were shunned by some of your former friends last summer in Martha's Vineyard. How do you feel now?
Well, I think I've always tried to be objective. I'm neutral. I'm nonpartisan when it comes to analyzing the law. And every single one of the predictions I've made over the past 2 years has come true. I predicted, for example, this report would be very critical of the president, but would not find evidence of either collusion, illegal collusion, or obstruction of justice. I made probably a dozen predictions over the years. Every one of them has been true because I'm not any smarter than anybody else, but I don't let my politics influence my legal analysis. I don't allow wishful thinking to substitute for careful legal analysis. And what happened as the result of that is that, for example, CNN, which used to have me on all the time, on Anderson Cooper, on Como, on Lemon, as an analyst, as a centrist analyst, decided, no, it's okay to have extreme Trump supporters because people just use them as kind of stick figure exhibits, and then everybody else will do the narrative of CNN. What they didn't want was a centrist liberal who went against their narrative. So,
but let me jump in here. Do you know, you've said that the CNN president, Jeff Zucker, essentially ordered you banned after you took these positions, but do you know that for a fact, or is that a supposition?
No, I do know that for a fact. I've been told that by several people within CNN. He told me the opposite when I met him in the elevator one day, and I asked him, how come I'm not on anymore? And he said, oh, no, you'll be on. But since the summer, I have never been on a single time. I've been on, all the other networks repeatedly, but clearly they made a decision. They did not want my kind of analysis. They had a choice. They had a choice of a Harvard law professor for 50 years who's been getting it right, who's a centrist liberal, and who has credibility, or Michael Avenatti. And they picked Michael Avenatti. In fact, one night I remember getting a call from CNN saying, oh, we have to cancel you. We have Avenatti. He's coming on tonight. Yeah. And he became their go-to guy, and every one of his predictions turned out to be false.
Not to mention that he's in a bit of legal trouble himself.
Put that aside, because he's presumed innocent. But he promised us that Trump would be out of office soon, and that his lawsuit would be the downfall of Trump, and all of that. He was proved wrong on every occasion. I really think the networks have to be held accountable for their predictions. I would love to see on your show or other shows just systematically showing what the pundits on the networks predicted and how they came true or not true, so we can evaluate the credibility of various pundits.
We have done some of that, and let me ask you, now that the report is out and you see many journalists saying, well, Mueller may have made no recommendation, but we see lots of evidence of obstruction of justice. What do you make of the way that news organizations are covering the report now, and do you think they are influenced by any political leanings?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. The report itself is a Rorschach test. You could find in it anything you want, because there's material very, very critical of the president. In my introduction, I show how Mueller got the law completely wrong on obstruction of justice, and I lay out what the law on obstruction is. You cannot be charged with obstruction if you're the president and you simply exercise your constitutional authority to fire Comey or anyone else. I lay that out carefully. And the best precedent for that is George H.W. Bush, who pardoned Caspar Weinberger and 5 other people on the eve of the trial. The special prosecutor said he obstructed justice, but he couldn't be charged with it. And they never mentioned the Bush case in the Mueller report. Mueller was in the Bush administration. Barr was in the Bush administration. And they deliberately omit the Bush case as the leading precedent, which would preclude a president from being charged with obstruction for simply exercising his constitutional authority.
So, Alan, as a professor, what grade would you give the Mueller investigation? And what about your criticism that Bob Mueller, being named the special counsel, should have made the decision, should have made the call on whether or not to indict for obstruction of justice, rather than essentially punting it to Attorney General Barr?
Well, in my introduction, I give grades. First, I give Mueller an incomplete, because he should have made the decision whether or not to charge with obstruction of justice. I think if he had made the decision, it would have to be that he couldn't charge for obstruction of justice, because he kind of lays out the arguments why it couldn't be possible. For example, if you have a general statute like obstruction, you can't apply it to the president under governing law unless Congress intended it to apply to the president if this could impact on his ability to govern. So he gets an incomplete on why he didn't make the decision. Then he gets a C+ on the legal analysis of obstruction, and I gave him a B+ on the factual analysis. The factual analysis seems fairly careful, but it should never have been released to the public. How do you distinguish him releasing to the public negative information and Comey being criticized for saying that Hillary Clinton was extremely careless? That's a double standard.
I've got 30 seconds. As long as you're a professor handing out grades, how do you grade the media coverage?
Oh, I think a flunk. I mean, even with the grade inflation, I just think the media comes off awful, terrible for the most part. I think we're seeing an elimination of the distinction between the editorial page and the news pages in some of the leading media in the country, and that's a shame. Walter Cronkite could not get a job in the media today.
Well, there's my headline. Dershowitz says F, and great to have you on. We'll hope you come back. Alan Dershowitz.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us.